How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about Steve Harvey labeling Mitch McConnell a hillbilly because he does not support slavery reparations. Now, before I even get into it, I got to say this. Steve Harvey, I like you, man. I think you're a brave person because you're one of the first Black American celebrities to go speak with Trump. This might have been during the campaign or right at the beginning of his presidency. You took a picture with him right during the point in time where there was so much vitriol, so much hatred being spewed at Black conservatives, more than it is right now. You were the one that went out there, took some of those first arrows. So for that, I commend you. However, in this particular case, I think you're dead wrong. I think you're also overcompensating for that particular picture, which you got a lot of negative feedback for, and some other things that were said in the media that have been used to damage your character. And before we even get into what Steve Harvey said, take a look at what Mitch McConnell said about reparations when he was asked.
Yeah, I don't think reparations for something that happened 150 years ago, for whom none of us currently living are responsible, is a good idea. We've, tried to deal with our original sin of slavery by fighting a civil war, by passing landmark civil rights legislation. We've elected an African-American president. I think we're always a work in progress in this country, but no one currently alive was responsible for that. And I don't think we should be trying to figure out how to compensate for it. First of all, it'd be pretty hard to figure out who to compensate. We've had waves of immigrants as well who've come to the country and experienced dramatic discrimination of one kind or another. So no, I don't think reparations are a good idea.
Okay, you saw that, you heard that. I don't really see any lies that were spoken. He was 100% correct about the time. I mean, you're talking about slavery ending in 1865. So over 150 years later, we're trying to figure out who gets what and how much and this, that, and the third. I think that we're a little bit too late for that particular situation. And beyond that, we've done a lot of things to get beyond the original sin of slavery. Okay, the war was fought, 100,000 white men, a lot of Black men and women died, and the end result was the end of slavery. Civil Rights Act was passed. Barack Obama, president twice. I mean, what more can really be done? Okay, it feels like yet another government entitlement with no real way to actually get the money from point A to point B. I think what Mitch McConnell said was right on point, but apparently Steve Harvey did not like what he said. And his response, which I'll get to now, was not really accurate. It was more of an emotional thing. He kind of alluded to Mitch McConnell being part of the group that killed Martin Luther King and had, sucked dogs on Black people during civil rights. And what else? Oh, he was talking about how y'all were in a Confederacy, part of the 13 states in the South that were fighting against the ending of slavery, and the North were fighting for the ending of slavery. Those are not his exact words, but I placed them on the screen and also in the box. But the main thing he got wrong here was about the North-South situation. First of all, there were not 13 states in the Confederacy. There were 11. You're talking about Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, Georgia, Alabama, Florida, Tennessee, North and South Carolina, and Virginia. That's not 13, that's 11. Beyond that, Mitch McConnell represents Kentucky. Okay, so Kentucky was never in the Confederacy. At first, it was neutral. Then it became part of the Union, the same as West Virginia. Matter of fact, West Virginia was in the Confederacy at first because it was part of Virginia. Then it seceded into the Union with slaves in 1863 and were allowed to keep them until 2 years later when slavery was actually over with. Okay, so let's get our facts straight here before we just get into an emotional tirade. But the biggest misconception or outright lie here is that the North fought the South to end slavery. That's not what happened, because the North had slaves throughout the entire war. Like I said, Kentucky, they had slaves. West Virginia had slaves. Missouri had slaves. So did Delaware and Maryland. These are all northern states. They want to call them border states, but it doesn't really matter. They had slaves throughout the entirety of the war. Matter of fact, the emancipation only applied to states in so-called rebellion, not northern states. But beyond that, I mean, the whole hillbilly comment, Mitch McConnell grew up in Alabama, Georgia, and mostly Kentucky. His father was in the military. If anything, he was more of a military brat. And I don't think that if you're in the military or a military family, you're just going to be some kind of backwoods redneck with no culture. That's not what Mitch McConnell is. Matter of fact, you don't get to be the Senate Majority Leader as a slack-jawed yokel, but I digress. I think Steve Harvey was just overcompensating and having a strong reaction against Mitch McConnell because of previous things that he has said that kind of got him in some hot water. He has a mostly black audience. I think he still has that radio show. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. But he wants to preserve that and kind of preserve his image. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong. And the reason why I think that way is because I've never heard Steve Harvey really get into some kind of black issues. You know, Barack Obama was in there for 8 years. I never heard Steve Harvey talk about reparations and, you know, the civil rights era. I never heard him say that. He could have, but I've only ever heard him just be a comedian, which is what he is. Be a funny man, not getting into the political stuff and the social commentary. People are very hopeful to get reparations, but it ain't really going to happen. If it was going to happen, it should happen at the end of slavery, right at the particular point in time. But now, how are you going to get it? Who are you going to be able to go to identify every person that is due some money? If any money was to be given, it'd be because of pure altruism, not because of a law that was broken. Let's be clear. Slavery was legal prior to 1865 in America, and it was legal all over the world. In some parts of the world right now in 2019, slavery is still on and cracking. It's still legal. It's not been outlawed. And if it has been outlawed, it's still kind of done on the low, but out in the open, if you understand what I mean. So in many ways, the U.S. were pioneers in ending the abhorrent act of slavery. People should recognize that rather than getting emotional when a thing like what Mitch McConnell said, which was fact, is said to them. So that is pretty much all I got. What say you? Do you think that Steve Harvey was correct in what he said, that, you know, it was a Republican Party or those that were in the South who, you know, put the dogs on black people, and Mitch McConnell is a hillbilly for not wanting to support reparations? Or is he incorrect? Were some of his facts incorrect? How about what Mitch McConnell said? Was that true? The thing is, if reparations were to be due, the logistics behind it will be a nightmare. Anytime I bring that point up to those that really support reparations, they kind of get upset. They get offended because they know that there's no real plan. They know that it's not really a thing that's actually feasible, but they want to have faith. They want to believe. It's like attacking religion. You got people that are atheists that say your God doesn't exist. You can't prove it. Ain't no facts, ain't no evidence. And some that are very, very deep in their faith who get offended by that. People look at reparations the same way they look at Christianity or Islam or something like that. And in my opinion, that's kind of unhealthy, but who am I? I'm just a guy talking. But whatever your comments are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.